In the early days, natural springs in what is now Lucerne Valley provided good camping grounds for the Indians on their way into the San Bernardino Mountains to gather piñon nuts. Local Indians resented the pioneers settling in the territory and committed some violent acts against them. Instead of discouraging the settlers, it caused them to marshal forces and attack the Indians. On February 1st, 1867, a decisive battle at Chimney Rock caused the Indians to retreat and leave the territory to the white pioneers. In July 1873, 5 men, L.D. Wilson, John E. McPhee, W.S. Manning, W.P. Morrison, and Holmes, located to the springs known as Rabbit Springs. They laid claim to the springs and 100 surrounding acres, according to a recorded document. In 1884, Peter Davidson operated a way station at Rabbit Springs. Travelers could get fresh water and exchange news, rest, or sleep over. Uncle Pete died in 1906. His grave is on Kendall Road and Rabbit Springs Road. In 1886, W. W. Brown brought his family to this valley, which was without a name at the time. Brown had water rights to the Box S, the ranch where the drainage now crosses Highway 18. The family stayed at Uncle Pete's until the old abandoned house could be moved onto Box S property. In 1896, Ellsworth Out acquired the Box S, intending to raise cattle. There was plenty of water, but not much to forage. Swarthout and a friend found a place about 15 miles to the east, which had even more water and lots of forage. After 1 year, he gave up on Box S and moved to Old Woman Springs Ranch. In 1897, James Goulding came to Box S with his wife Anna and 2 small children, Mamie and George. 3 more children, Minnie, Jim, and Nellie, were born in Lucerne Valley. Dad Goulding proved the fertility of our soil in his apple orchard, vegetable garden, and alfalfa fields. He also raised cows, horses, and other animals. He dug a well, which proved to be artesian. In 1905, a friend suggested to Goulding that this valley should have a name. Because of his success in growing alfalfa, also known as Lucerne, he christened the place Lucerne Valley. Dad Goulding is generally acknowledged as the founder of Lucerne Valley. In 1907, Goulding legally established Lucerne Valley School District. Hannah Brown, a cousin of whose family lived in Oro Grande, came to live with the Gouldings for the requirement of 6 students could be met. The school building was a former cook shack on wheels, 8 foot by 18 feet, with the wheels removed and one end of the inside painted black for the blackboard. The school opened in September. More families began settling over the Lucerne Valley. In 1910, Goulding donated property for the new school where the Baptist church now stands. In 1912, people in the east end of the valley thought the school should be closer to them, so they formed a new school district to be known as Midway. In 1915, still another school district, Rodman, was formed in the North Valley. In 1916, windstorm and fire destroyed both the Lucerne Valley and Midway schools. All the students attended Rodman School until the other 2 were rebuilt, which took a couple of years because of the wartime problems. In 1920, Rodman School lapsed and joined with Midway, which by then was in its present form. In 1941, Lucerne School was condemned as unsafe and all students went to Midway. The building and grounds were purchased by the community church and used until 1952, when the building burned to the ground during a traffic windstorm at night. In 1951, construction was begun in the new Lucerne Valley School of its present site. Lucerne Valley's library history began with 140 books in the front room of the Box S Ranch House in 1912. Most of them were for the school to use, but some of them could be borrowed by local residents. In 1915, the library was at Midway School and was made a branch of the county library. In 1916, a storm damaged some of the books and the library was moved to Boom Ranch on Wilshire, northeast of Midway. After being closed during World War I, both Midway School and the library reopened in September of 1918. The library continued as a combination school and public library until March of 1928, when it became a community branch of the county library system. When the Lucerne School building was condemned for school use, the library moved in. When the church bought the building, the library was moved into a smaller room there. Later, it was moved into a small, narrow trailer behind the present China House. Ethel Owen, the librarian, said that looking out into the little porthole-shaped windows during a strong wind made her feel like she was in a sinking ship. The library moved again to the building, which is now occupied by the sheriff's office. Mrs. Vera Russell, John's mother, was one of the librarians at the location. The library's last move was into the present building, generously provided by John Russell at the very low rent. From there, it will be moved into its beautiful new permanent home, for which the ground was broken in March 17th of 1988. Lucerne Valley Post Office was established in 1912 at the ranch of John and Rosa Coley, who came here in 1909. It was at the southeast corner of Rabbit Springs Road and Post Office Road. Rosa Coley was postmaster. Some days only 8 cents worth of stamps were canceled, so that was the postmaster's salary. In 1935, the post office moved to a one-room building on the highway west of Boxdust Ranch with Ed Smith as postmaster. Later, the post office moved again to share the Clark building with John Hudson's and Irving Seaberg's hardware store. Flora Ann Clark was postmaster. The post office moved again to the Triangle on Verdugo Road and Oracle Road. Early postmasters there were Vern Eli and Ray Bonin. The post office is now in its permanent location on Highland Avenue, south of Highway 18. A volunteer fire department was first organized during World War II, along with the fire watchers, sky watchers, plane watchers, civil defense, and etc. In the early 50s, a firehouse was built with donated material and volunteer labor. It was located about where Shell Gas Station and Halleck's Market is now. They had a unique system. People would phone Dick's center store to report fires. Dick Groberty would then press a button on his wall, which was wired to the siren on top of the firehouse. This was how the volunteer firemen were summoned. The building was torn down after a short period, and Present County Fire District was formed in 1962 and 63. At the time, it was still operated with volunteer firemen and one paid chief. Some of the early descendants of the early settlers still live here. William Russell, John's father, filed on his land at Lucerne Springs in 1911. John came here to live in 1949 and has been building houses and commercial buildings ever since. Also in 1911, Theodore P. Owen filed on 640 acres 2 miles north of Midway School. His son Dick has come and gone, but has lived here steadily since 1950. Athene Cisuerda was another very early settler. She was first to have the pistachio trees here. Her son, Joe Sherman, lives here now. Orlando and Mildred Jacobs came here in 1928. There were about 250 people in Lucerne Valley then. At the Jacobs home in North Valley, Jake baked 60 or 70 loaves of bread, sweet rolls, cakes, and pies on Saturdays and sold them through Max Lewis's grocery store. Later, he rented from Goulding in the building now Rosebud Gift Shop and established the Homestead Bakery and Grocery. At the same time, Mildred ran the Jack Rabbit Cafe, located on the land now owned by the Halleck's Market. In 1936, Jake and Mildred moved their house onto the land that they bought, and the Jacobs donated 10 acres of their land, which is now Pioneer Park. As Jake's health failed, Mildred gave up the cafe and ran the Homestead Bakery. She still found time to clear and plant in the park along the other residents. The Jacobs had 2 daughters, Shirley Ann and Millie Lou. Millie Lou lives in Maryland, and Shirley Ann, Mrs. Bob Fuller, lives in Apple Valley. Ethel Owen came in 1946 as Ethel Johnson and built Lucerne Valley's first beauty shop. Ethel and Dick Owen were married in 1950 in the Old Community Church, and their daughter Lily Ann was born in 1952 and was dedicated there shortly before it burned down. This has been a brief history of Lucerne Valley of California. The foregoing was prepared by Ethel Owen on March 25, 1988, from material obtained from the Lucerne Valley Library and from her own memory.